All right, guys. We're live and at 6 p.m. We're going to start our board work session. Are you going to take roll or do you want to take roll?
If you can take roll, that would be great.
Well, it looks like my whole board is here. Minus Jeremy. Is that good enough?
Wow, that is good enough.
So this is a board work session about budget. It was requested by the board, for the board, and for anyone who would like to join us from the budget committee. Thank you, Glenn, for coming. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Lori and Karen, who are going to run this.
All right, good evening. We have a template. This was to, All right, so budget 101. We have a template there for any note taking. Karen and I are just gonna go back and forth on this one. So the essential question, so I go back into my teacher mode. This is our essential question for the evening is why is Sheridan School District making budget cuts? And then we have the 4 learning targets, understanding our financial situation, learning where the funding comes from, understanding the state school fund, and with that comes all the formulas that drive how much we receive in the general fund, and then how this all connects to funding decisions. So you notice on your template, we've got each of those areas. You can just jot down whatever notes you want, and then we're gonna, when we wrap up, you're gonna hopefully be able to write out, if a community member asks you why Sheridan School District is making budget cuts, what would you tell them? Are you able to verbalize, hey, this is what's going on with the district right
I can already answer this.
now? Let's see how much you know. All right, so here is our fiscal reality. Karen, you want to walk us through those 3 areas? The 2 areas and then the equals and why we're at 400,000.
So the state school fund reduction, and that's based on our declining enrollment. And so from the amount that we got last year to the amount we're estimating to get next year is going to be down about $300,000. And so then that just shows basically per student how much they're waiting, I guess. And then that just leads to our budget gap. And we like for our ending fund balance to be at least $1 million. And the budget this year does not contain that amount. So that's our goal, trying to get that back up.
The budget presented at our first budget committee meeting has the ending fund balance at 600,000. So we do have this gap of 400,000 and we are continuing to make cuts. We are going into looking at staffing to right size because of the drop of enrollment. We have begun to look at programs being even, okay, within facility management, within special education, within how we're offering our electives, what our class sizes are. Just really digging into that to see what we can do and where we can make those cuts. And then you see down at the bottom there, the decline in our enrollment. And when we first started this, it wasn't so much the state not providing enough, it was that we had dropped. And it is getting to that time where we absolutely have to adjust.
We're down 98 students. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. It is a lot. Mm-hmm. But we're excited that kindergarten has almost 30 kids registered. It was like 28 or 30 pre-registered. So that's usually about half of what we usually get. So we're hopeful for August that we'll get a kindergarten enrollment back up.
And then this is behind a year, so then it'll take a little while to get it.
Yep. So the state school fund is behind. All right, and then our cost pressures. So PERS, the Public Employees Retirement System, the district contributes for employees into this system, 6%.
More than 6%.
Okay, correct me and keep going.
We have to pay about 24% for employees who are in the low, not tiered, the off-tier group, and then about 27% for employees who are tiered. And that's just the formula that PERS has, and they send out the rates every 2 years. So this year, for 26, 27, it's the same rates, and 27, 28, they're going to be adjusted again.
And this is the talk of going into the next biennium. So right now, we're finishing up year 1 of the biennium. But that next biennium, it's anticipated that PERS costs are going to start to skyrocket. And this has been, they've been talking about this for a while. But also because it's a very, very complicated formula. And I know Karen spends lots of time in webinars to learn and understand the PERS system.
And it's also one of those things, it's, I guess it's a trickle up effect. It's like, so if the staff get, a 1% raise or whatever, then our PERS costs will automatically go up by 1% because it's based on salary and stuff. So it's just one of those things that sneaks up. Yes.
And the tier 1 employees, which I was, and then I retired from PERS, are very costly. And years and years and years ago, the state changed up and did additional tiers. I think when Pat started, which was in the mid-90s, he might be one of the last of that group of the tier 1s. So they will age out, and that will help. Some districts offer retirement incentives, and we thought about that. We really don't have anyone that close. You've got to have your 30 years in. All right, and then utilities and transportation, that continues to go up. If you live in Sheridan, you know that utilities continue to go up. Karen and I also talked about that. Our transportation costs, we have a little bit about that on another slide, but that is another cost that goes up each year. And then our grants just fluctuate based on enrollment. So we have to anticipate the change in our grant amounts as well. And we'll go into that a little bit later.
And the other thing I was thinking about is the enrollment also affects like our ESD funding. So
Yes.
the amount we get from resolution funds and the amount we get, the flow through amount from them is also affected by that. Because their funding is parceled out basically.
So the ESD gets a certain amount per district, and then we get a menu of what we're going to purchase with a certain amount. That is what is referred to as resolution dollars. So oftentimes what happens every spring is I go to a meeting and I can literally pick from a menu of all the services we need. It's things like the e-finance system that Karen uses. We have to pay for that. We have to pay for a courier. We get tech support. We have all of our technology, Wi-Fi, all of that is through the ESD. Special education services are through the ESD. And by then, our resolution money is done. By the time I get through infrastructure and special education costs and technology, then we are looking at contracting. And that has to come from the general fund. So if we end up having to contract for a service, that's going to come out of that general fund. Does that make sense? You start with a resolution, you spend your resolution because that's coming through the state, and then you go to having to contract. All right, and then just a review of what things cost. This is average teacher salary with benefits. So that's with the PERS costs, that's with payroll costs, and then classified employees, what it costs if we close school on a school day, and then one classroom, one teacher. And so we've been taking a look at just our class sizes and increasing our class sizes as we adjust to our drop in enrollment. Okay, is it making sense so far? Okay, revenue sources. State school fund, which is the complicated formula that Karen's going to walk us through, these reports that she gets all year, our state grants, and then our federal grants. Okay, state school fund overview. This is state and local taxes. So Karen, You gotta walk us through this and what this tells you every time you get one of them. And what did you say at budget committee? You got 11 of them this year? Each one is slightly different with the changes.
So we have two versions of this, and the first one is dated March 3rd, 2025. And this is the one that I built the budget on, because this comes in March, like when I do a budget, and so it's like, this is the best guesstimate. And it basically what I do is I have a report, and it's just called the estimate of revenue and like ADM or something like that. So I go in and I just say, okay, this is how much I think we're going to get for local property taxes, how much I think we'll get for common school fund, the county school fund, and then that just says, okay, this is how much revenue I think we're going to get from other sources. And then they do the experience adjustment, and this is based on, we of course do several reports to ODE, and so they figure out that state average thing. The transportation grant is just basically when they go to do the reconciliation, they will go in and they'll fill out this based on our actual expenditures. And then we are reimbursed at 70%. So of our reimbursable expenses, like when kids go on like a non-learning field trip, those expenses are not reimbursable. So, you know, the district just pays for those, but most everything else is reimbursable. So we'll get part of that added back into our state school budget amount.
So it's non-learning trip like a baseball game?
I don't know about others. I'm thinking about like if they go like a Fun Friday swim to Evergreen or something like that. But yeah, pretty much. Nothing else.
And then to mention, Karen mentioned the experience adjustments. You see the 25-26 district average teacher experience. And Karen jokingly, when we made a hire of someone that had 18 years of experience, stopped hiring expensive teachers because the state has to take that into account, but then it's also playing catch up. So because these are a year behind in the numbers. So this is Oregon's formula that they adjust into what's called weights for students. And the weights have to do if the student is in special education, if the student is in, qualifies as an emerging bilingual student and is receiving English language development services. So you have different weights, but then you also have the teacher experience, and that comes into this formula of what Sheridan School District will get.
And then we come down to the all-important extended ADMW.
So average daily membership weight.
And if you look on the second page of that report, that there is a breakout of what they say our ADMW is. And since this one is from March, the first one that we get with this estimate, they just lump everybody together. All prep and district are just put up in the district's block. And then eventually it gets broken out. But this just shows that the ADMR is what we consider enrollment. Usually they just call it butts and seats. And then they will go through and like if we have 5 students in the EL program, so we get a little bit extra weighting for them. So it just goes basically down through, and you know, I'll get a new estimate and maybe our students in poverty will change, or those students in foster care, and it's just kind of the reports that we submit to ODE all flow into this.
The 150 IEP students capped at 11% of district. That was something that the state legislature a year ago tried to push through, and well, I should say COSA, which is our state administrative advocacy group. They wanted the cap removed because the superintendents were saying that we need more money to provide services for special education. We have more students in need. The programs where you would have a student go and get the specially designed instruction elsewhere don't exist like they used 2 years ago. And so we are expected to provide for students, and if we do have a student that has to go out of district, it can cost the district as much as $70,000 per student. So it gets to be very, very expensive. But the cap is only 11%. So any students above 11%, we're not getting funding for those. And that's just, it's a problem with our state school fund and how it's designed. With the drop of enrollment at the high school, took a look at the caseload of the special education teachers, and the high school's at 22% special education now. Students in special education, which is very, very high. Our, district-wide, we're around 19%.
Do you know what the districts around us are, just like in comparison?
I don't, but that would be really good to find out.
Would be interesting information.
And what Missy is, what we're talking about too, is we're not identifying students. They're coming to us already identified. And in fact, when she does her board report, she's going to talk about that and how many students we've identified. Because we were flagged for the jump in the number of our special education students between 24, 25, and 25, 26. It's referred to as being disproportionate compared to non. And so we get to explain it, but we have the numbers to show that students moved in with the designation, and there's really nothing we can do until we have the evidence to take them off those services.
So we could probably look at the estimates for like Amity and Lorena and see what they got in that.
If you know where to find it on the Oregon Department of website, you can find this for any district in the state. And in fact, when I first had my budget meeting as an administrator, my budget class as administrator many, many years ago, that's what we did, is we randomly pulled this and then learned from it of seeing these reports.
Okay. So there's a thing called hold harmless for the ADMW. So they look at our 2 years. If the prior year's ADMW is higher, they will let us use that ADMW. We call that the extended ADMW. So you can see that 25, 26, we're at 1255, and 24, 25 was 1347. So they are funding us at the higher rate, which is great until they do the reconciliation, and then we've gotten, all of our money based on this amount, that it's actually down here. So it's kind of a plus and minus game. So then they take all these numbers and they put them through some calculations. And if you look at under the general purpose grant, and it says then multiply 4484, blah, blah, blah. And then it says then by the funding ratio, that 2.4754. And that's basically what they're saying is that it's 2.4% of the entire whatever state school fund is what we get. But this thing changes all the time. I think right now, the ones that I was looking at earlier, it was at like 2.3. Anyway, so that changes. And then the total formula revenue, you take the general purpose grant that you just calculated, and then you add from the transportation grant up above your eligible expenditures. And then you go ahead and then you subtract the local revenue that we expect you're going to get, and that gives you your state school fund amount. Then of that, so then of course we do flow through funds for our charter school, and they get a per student rate based on that 11,913. That also changes all the time.
And what percentage do we keep back from their money?
We keep 5% of high school, I think, and then right now we're getting 4% of the other part of it.
Does it
No,
pencil out?
I'm sorry, 14%. 14% of it.
And does it pencil out when we figure out our costs?
Well, that's gonna change every year because they're gonna get more and more based on the contract.
And we've
That
got,
we negotiated with them last year.
So it becomes better for us year after year,
No,
worse.
yeah,
but, because it also, it has,
But they're getting less services from us.
Correct.
yes, because we are not letting them, they are doing their own sped services, so that comes into it as well. But, we're still covering some of our expenses. I mean, we're still getting money back for, overhead of us. doing what we
It would be a significant loss of the budget if we ended the charter.
Um,
And at one time, it was gonna be like around 300,000.
It benefits our students in our district to have the charters where I'm at. Or
Some, we'd have to figure out that calculation. I know when we handed off special education services, it was a hit because it was going to cost us, but at the same time, we're weighing out my time, Mrs. time, and what was going on. So, we can bring to the board then how much we are keeping. Years ago, when charter started, it used to be just viewed as a cash cow for districts, especially the virtual one, because you do have the formula and you keep the overhead.
Right.
We join with them, an agreement with Oregon School Board for policy. They can use our HR system, but as far as people time, I'm an hour a month of that. Missy checks in occasionally. Aaron provides some support for state testing, and then Karen's got the bulk of it. So we still keep quite a bit of overhead.
And it would basically be a wash, because if we didn't have a charter, we wouldn't have their ADM added into ours. We basically, however many they have, we give them an amount based on that.
Right.
So, we would lose some for our overhead. But-
Yeah. But that's a good point, and we can bring that information back of what that is. I know it is more for the K-5, that percent that we keep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I know before Karen came, when we were going through issues with the Japanese school, and somebody had voiced the question of, well, what would happen if Sheridan didn't have any charters? And at that time, Deanne, our business manager, said, well, it would be a loss of about 300,000 to our revenue because of that overhead. But we can check that now.
Yeah.
And see where we're at.
Interesting numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember, Scott Burke, when he was on the negotiation team for the charter, he did say to me, he's like, it'd be nice if we could refer to this as something else other than a cash cow. Because it's like, we do keep money from it, from being the host district.
Right.
So,
I knew that, and I know it's a small percentage. I just want to make sure that we're not ever going backwards in that deal as well.
Yeah.
And be very consciously aware.
yeah, definitely. That formula that Karen had, the ratio, the 2.47, blah, 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 blah. That is what the budget committee had referred to as the current service level. This was another part that COSA tried to advocate for at the state level to change the ratio. Because a couple of years ago, when the cost of everything just started going up, business managers across the state, their calculations was that this ratio needs to be more than 11%. And that was talked about at all my state superintendent meetings throughout the year, and they could not get the state to budge on that. So the formula is still the same, but that is what they say is the ratio year to year that you should be able to keep all your services the same.
That's actuals.
Yep. And it's not accurate. So that's another challenge.
So real quick,
Go ahead.
so if you look at the estimate that's dated May 1st, you can see the differences. So I can go in and like in October or so, I can go in and if I realize, okay, I know we're gonna get more in local tax revenue, I know what the common school fund payment's gonna be, then I can go and update these so they're more accurate. Celine went in and cleaned up a bunch of our data that we've been submitting, and so I had to go in and say, look what you did to our teacher experience, but it's correct now. So it went way down. And then you can also see how they had trued up 24-25 ADMW. And so that was after the reconciliation, and that's what they're saying that's going to stay at. And then we submit ADM reports every quarter. And so I can go in and look at what we say we've reported. And so based on that, I can kind of look and see, okay, this is really close to what I think we have, or it's like way far away. So I try to keep an eye on that. And then once again, you can see how the lending ratio has changed a little bit. And then I also, our transportation costs have gone down a little bit, so I went and changed it, and then, oh my gosh, we started getting our fuel bills and stuff. So that's gonna be, so then you can see, they did all the calculations, and so our state school fund revenue has gone down a little bit between what I budgeted on and what we're actually getting. So we're gonna have a negative May adjustment. Based on this.
That's bad. Okay, so you're talking about the 11,411. Total formula per extended, average daily membership weighted.
The difference.
In March was 11,411. The one in May was 11,243.
Yeah, and if you look at the, right above it.
Oh, yeah, the 13,000.
We did think we were gonna get 13,270, or whatever, but now I'm only gonna get 13,180.
13 million. And that's the change in just from March 3rd to May 1st.
And when does the next one release come out?
This was March of 2025.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. From a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
This is-
thinking March 26th.
This is what we did the budget based on, and this is what we ended up with. But then you can also see how the charter school rate went down a lot as well. So that means we were flowing through as much money to the charter. And then the other thing I wanted to say about the ADMW is this is based on the time kids are actually in class. And so if a student is only there, 9/10 of the time, they're not weighted at 1.0, it'll be like a 0.9 or point whatever. So that's why we can end up with a 0.32, not just 0.32 of a kid. So I thought it was interesting that the charter schools enrollment is going down as well. So anyway, right now, our extended ADMW is 1366. And looking at what they had posted, next year, or 25-26, it's going to be much lower than that. So we'll probably be, it's going to be, we're going to lose a lot. Going from 1366 to like 1255 or whatever. That's what I base the budget on. So I don't know, it's just depressing.
Questions? State school fund.
And I know it is super confusing. And then this isn't even talking about the high cost disability grant that goes into this and the small high school correction that goes into this. And that's why I just have to say our budget is planned. It's all fluid. It just, even the charter school ADM is going to affect us.
Yes.
Is this something we can like share with the community, not the numbers, but like, there's no, if people move for whatever reason, we understand, but also like, what can you do to help us? Like, movement is something that really impacts our members and we're going to have to be cut a lot less in other districts, right? But like, help us out because the reality is not to keep the numbers stable. Year after year, we're going to have to, you know,
Yeah.
lose great teachers or if AI or IA, right? Because, that or, you know, who knows what, you know, joining other districts, we're already co-opting in sports, right? And so if that,
Right, looking at Willamina.
yeah.
Yeah. I know McMinnville has had a significant drop of enrollment and they are starting to make cuts. Salem Kaiser is a huge drop of enrollment.
For other schools, it's really.
Yeah.
It is across the state. And in January, I think it was January, Pat did a board presentation where he looked at the class of 2026 and how many kids came in as freshmen and how many are still here. And I think it was like maybe, I want to say 34, 32 students that had left. He did an analysis of where did they go? And several just left the state, several moved out of the region. 3 graduated early. So you have this mobility and then you have people not staying in this community. And I also know if housing is a problem for people to come into the community. So it's definitely something that drop of enrollment. Our long range facility plan had an analysis on enrollment done and it looked out to 2030 and it was a steady decline. It feels to me like we just dropped in a year and a half.
Nobody anticipated COVID.
This was not the steady decline.
Well, if you remember coming out of COVID, many districts around us saw huge cuts then, but we didn't. We held strong really until last year and now we're right where they are.
Right.
We just didn't have a steady decline.
Yeah, and kindergarten, this year's kindergarten was low across the region. So, and you just get those bubbles of kids that go through. We still have a couple that are closer to 60. Some are more like 45. We were just looking at the trends and these groups going through. Any questions on the state school fund report? This is just the general fund, Fund 100, which is the first section in your budget book.
Pretty much out of our control, is what it is.
Yes, yes, it is. We just have to make sure that we have accurate reporting to the state. Karen's done a great job of creating the spreadsheet of all the state reports we have to do, who's assigned to them, what's the window. You submit the report, you have a time to correct any errors, that window of opportunity, and just making sure that our data is clean. Any other questions or thoughts?
Karen, we're seeing the ABMW number next year would be 1255, is that what you're saying? That was based on the March 2022. Or is it gonna be the 906 if they ever, like the more recent one?
The 906, they'll add that plus the, okay. Yeah. So whatever much that is. And then I know one year as I was looking back through things, one year they did a thing where, like it wasn't just, okay, 24, 25, it was like, oh, if the charter school was higher in this year, but the district was higher in this year, then they took those numbers and added them together. Which was, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, you're doing it wrong, that's not how it works. So I was really confused for a while until I figured that out. It's just, it's very interesting.
I've been told from superintendents that have come in from out of state that Oregon has one of the most complicated school finance systems in comparison to other states because of this formula. It's supposed to provide for the differences. So like in Eastern Oregon, if you have students that are on a bus for a really long time and you have there's a formula to have that. If you have
a really, really experienced teaching staff. There's the formula to help with that, and so on and so forth, but it is really complicated, and then also how much it changes.
So the ADM that they put out for the 26-27 estimate was 1,226.
Any other questions before we go on to grants? All right, I think most of this will be a review. We have state grants and we have federal grants. We have high school success. High school success needs to be spent in 3 buckets. Let's see if I can remember all these. It is CTE, dropout prevention, and college readiness. Those are the 3 areas that we are allowed to spend money for high school success. Early literacy is K-2 instruction. And the student investment account, those buckets are student mental health, class size reduction, and I just said, world experiences. So enrichment kinds of things. So STEM classes, technology classes, things like that. So those are the 3 areas. And then we were just awarded $120,000 for summer learning. So we get to offer summer learning programs for the next 3 summers. And so high school success and student investment account, I can there's times where we can split a position between the 2 that really helps. The student investment account is close to $800,000. It funds 6 positions right now. And then high school success supports a little bit of CTE, CTE teacher, and then our AVID contract, and that's about it for high school success. And it's not very much, and we're anticipating high school success is going to go down because of the drop in enrollment in our high school. The federal grants, I manage the title grants, so Title 1A, Title 2A, there should also be a 4A in there, I'll left one out. And then Title 3, Title 1A is it's your big one. It is FCS K-8 is our title school. And what I'm able to do at the beginning in August is I can combine Title 1A, Title 4A, and Title 2A into one grant. I can break them. That gives us more money, and it funds reading intervention primarily. We can also do supplemental curriculum. We pay for a little bit of our McKinney-Vento liaison. We can pay for family and family engagement activities out of title, but all the funds cannot be at the high school. They have to only be at Wilmer Chapman for the title grants, the way they are structured. The COPS grant, we were just awarded last fall, that's $500,000. It is connected with a matching grant of our Awesome grant. So we're doing that in sync with our bond projects. And then IDEA, which I thankfully do not manage, Karen and Sila manage that one. That is our special education grant and funds some positions that we have.
Is the COPS one renewable?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's a one and done. Yeah, title grants are every year. There's been a slight drop at Title 1A going for next year. We are projected only to be about 3,000 less than this year, which I was really happy to see. So we keep, the state will send us, all right, here's your projected amount, and then you can start planning. And then all of these we submit plans, we have to do quarterly reports, we have to do fiscal reports. We are held accountable for making sure that with our state grants, we are hitting all the right buckets for those funds. Question about grants?
I had a dumb question. What makes us a title school or school district?
It's a good question.
And are we anywhere in danger of losing that?
No.
Okay.
No, and there's different formulas for how they calculate poverty. It has to do with the poverty formula. I have seen reports from the state that have Faulkner-Chapman as high as 83%. And it used to be called being on free reduced lunch. And years ago, when I was an elementary principal, families had to fill out every year a form. And that form went into what is your free reduced lunch count, and that's the formula. Now it's community-wide. So that formula has changed. I've also seen a report where Faulkner-Chapman is at like 45%, which that does not feel like our lived reality. And I disagree with that. This is another area that superintendents are pushing back against, is how different parts of the Oregon Department of Ed uses a different formula. But the title grant is based on the poverty rate, the free reduced lunch rate, similar terms. All the title grants are. The Title III, actually, we are in a consortium because we only have, I believe this year we have 12 identified second language learners, K-12. And so we joined a consortium with the ESD, and then that means all the small districts with, so few. We combined and we just do a little bit because that grant would be like $2,000. So then we're able to combine with other districts and do some other services. I will say under Title III, we've had the last couple of years, a couple of newcomers. We had siblings that came to us from Houston, and before that, they were in Cuba. And they did not like Houston. They did not like Houston schools. They loved living in Sheridan. And I always try to figure out what brought you to Sheridan. And they were living in a home with another family, and then they ended up finding housing elsewhere. So, and that's happened a couple of times. We had another student. I don't remember the country, from the Middle East. Native language was Pajami. We had a translator, caught on to English so fast, and just did exceptionally well. And when they have their translator, they know how to use it, and you can tell it had formal education in their country of origin. So that has been really good, and I've enjoyed that, and so has the staff and students. But for a variety of reasons, the students only stay just a few months, and then find housing elsewhere. So that's Title III. Mm-hmm. All right, and then just a little bit of information about our grants. Like I said, they can only be used within the certain buckets for each grant. And then these, some of the grants, like high school success, will fluctuate based on the enrollment. And grants can't help us. We have to continue to manage them and reduce when necessary. And as soon as we get the projection for next year, we start looking at, okay, where are we going to cut? If this is what's going to, when they give us that prediction, and then we pretty much know by mid-August what the grant is for the entire year. It doesn't fluctuate within the year. It's year to year that we get that fluctuation. The SIA has been around for a long time. I cannot remember, I think it was through a corporate tax. It's considered to be very, very stable. I get worried if that one should go away, but there has not been any talk of it. High school success originally was called Measure 98. And that one also has been around for a very, very long time. The early literacy grant has only been during our current governor's term of service. Came up with the early literacy grant. Okay. So do you understand why we're making reductions? Our costs are up, enrollment's down, and because with enrollment being down, revenue is also down. And there you see the note, every 25 students represents 250 to 300K or 1 to 2 teachers. So that gives us the where we have to start making adjustments. So here's the overview of what we have done so far. We refer to it in tiers. Our tier 1 started reducing our classroom teachers by 5 FTE. Of the 5, 3 were resignations. We did give 2 ref notices. 1 teacher took a job at another district. And then we reduced an office position by 0.25 FTE. And then 0.25 of 1 district office position went to grant funding to help with the general fund. And then, as the board knows, I chose to freeze my salary. And staff have all been notified of this. This document has gone out. Tier 2 is really where we're at right now. We are looking to reduce 5 to 7 classified positions in the next few weeks. We have looked over reducing our classified hours and the amount of time on contracts. We have our collective bargaining agreement for the hourly staff, our classified staff, says that they have to be at 32.5 hours a week to get insurance. We have proposed changing that just to 32. Our modified 4-day week created a havoc trying to get that 0.5 in. And so some will be reduced to just 32. And we will just even it out that way. We've also looked at what staff need to work Fridays and what staff do not need to work Fridays. These are hard choices. This is not easy. I have not been through this as a superintendent. I've been through it as an elementary principal in 2008, 2009. Districts did massive cuts during that period of time, and it took a while to recover. And then we are continuing to look at programs, contracts. We have a list of contracts. I have canceled the contract with Scooter Education, which was another hard decision to make. We might contract with them for just 1 or 2 surveys, and they've offered that as a considerable discount. The most expensive thing is for Brent to travel. So just those hard decisions. But we believe we're coming close to that $400,000 gap. And then we continue to look at, okay, what else can we cut? If we take a furlough day, the savings would be around $59,000. And our instructional minutes, if we took a Friday, there's no impact to our instructional minutes. So we may look at taking 1 or 2 Fridays to get more than $1 million by the end of next year. The other thing I'm going to do is just freeze travel. And it's like, we don't, I go to conferences occasionally, it comes out of the general fund. It's like, no, I'm not going to be traveling, administrator's not going to be traveling, unless it's specific in a grant that is already in place.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier you said it's 59,000 about a school day.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do a furlough, is that number different on operating school day versus a Friday?
Yes.
Because I feel like it's got to be.
Yeah.
So what is it really on a Friday? So if we take some furlough days on a Friday.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to take more furlough days to actually.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Versus a student contact
Do
day.
you have that number?
We were talking about it being around 45,000.
Because we wouldn't have all the staff.
Right. And some of your staff one-on-ones you wouldn't have here, right? That kind of stuff.
And busing. We only run 1 bus route for the enrichment.
And food services, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That one's the number.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we first started this a few weeks ago, I think you said it was 45,000 for a Friday compared to, or 48,000, somewhere in there. But yes, to get that number nailed down as we start to look at this.
What are the staff doing that? Like missing a Friday, like you said, we're 1 Friday a month in the school year. Like, how is it looked upon?
That's a great question. Some of the feedback that I've received is that if we take away a school day, it brings awareness to basically this crisis, and maybe, and I don't know that would have the same meaning in Sheridan as it would in other districts, to increase advocacy at the state level.
Hurts no one but our students.
Like if we, if
I'll be rude to be there. It's not gonna change anything at the state capitol.
Yeah.
For us, like, I understand the statement,
that's
but it's only hurting the students.
right, and we need to have eyes on our kids.
Yeah. They're much better off. We've talked about this, even when we cut Fridays, we were so scared because we wanted our kids in our building. So to take more days away from them,
Especially meals.
yeah,
So many of our families.
that's their sweet spot.
Absolutely.
I heard one district had used, like paid holidays and used that, like, we're gonna take a paid holiday for that. And they will get paid for that, but that's not as much of an impact because it's just salaries and benefits, it's not, all the rest of the costs.
Right.
That's
But it's
also-
less impactful on our students, and that's where my mind goes, how do we be the least impactful on our students and their education, because we already struggle there.
Well, and that's why we continue to look at staffing and increasing our class sizes. And looking at, our electives and what electives we're offering, and what does that FTE look like across the board. Yeah, Ruby.
Is the increase in class sizes going to impact our grant that is focused on reducing class sizes?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, those teaching positions are in the K-5. And so that already helps to reduce. We've had the luxury of having class sizes under 20. And we just, some are really small, some are very, very small, and we can't do that anymore. So that's how we've been able to absorb 5 teaching positions already. I'm getting prepared to absorb a 6th. So, and we have a couple more people that we believe are applying around, and we will be prepared to absorb those positions. So, because I'd rather have kids here, I do not want to take a furlough day.
I definitely don't think cutting electives is a terrible idea. Just from what I've seen, there's a number of class sizes, even in middle school, that are like 11 kids kind of thing, 12 kids in the full class. And oftentimes, at least when I've been there, there's been 6 to 8 that have actually been in class that day. And so I don't feel like that's a terrible thing to do because we have such.
We're looking at going up to 25 to 28.
Yeah.
For grade 6 through 12 totally. And then, I mean, there was a period of time where in other districts, high school classes were as high as 35. I mean, that was the norm, and we just have gotten used to this, and it's like, now we can no longer afford to do this.
Yeah, well, my only concern with the electives is we already have a reduced number of students, so making sure that we can dance around which classes are popular and that kind of stuff, and, or, right, because it's like, oh, you're cutting this, I'm gonna go somewhere else to have that, right?
Yep.
So then we're still gonna feed into that problem. And then my other concern is staffing, right? Wearing many hats is very taxing. And so then, I mean, there's the con of we're gonna lose somebody that can wear many hats and then maybe get someone less experienced that costs less, right? So,
Right.
And it's also, you don't want to get so low that it's like chaos ensues.
Yeah.
As well.
yeah, my husband works like 7 times at work and he can't do it, right? So he's like,
And that my sister's a student health assistant in Florida Public, and she said they just laid off like 2 people like in her same like set of school. And she said, so now I have to give up my field day, which was basically paperwork day, because now I have to cover one of these schools. And it's just like, it's so hard, but it's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
Right. So then we're gonna be running into burnout and everything else with our teachers. We don't want that. Yeah.
And we've talked about how do we have programs for kids to keep kids engaged in learning while we're cutting, and what different things can we do, and looking at what electives we offer that the students really want, like culinary. If we can continue to offer that, we got the garden grant, and so we're looking at that, and it's going to be part of the summer programs. But then also, what can we do during the school year? We used a bit of a manufacturing grant to purchase some STEM labs. So this is hands-on learning, and super excited that this is something that we can staff and we can offer our students to get them engaged in learning. And it's more along the lines of career exploration because the way the modules are.
oh, good.
So, yeah, very good. All right, so what's that?
It's 5 to 7.
I know. Karen's my timekeeper. So we've already talked about this. What these changes mean? We want to maintain our current services. this is not going to improve our programs unless we're just very intentional on what areas we are going to really focus on. And then you see the shared and impact and that funding ratio that we've talked about. So our key takeaways: enrollment drives our funding, staffing is in the budget, grants kind of temporary, they can fluctuate, and then we want to cut deeper this year to be ready for the second year of the biennium, and that's what everyone is anticipating of what is going to be our ending fund balance for June of 2027. And then the system limitations. This is always hard to explain with Oregon because the current service level is looking backwards. It catches up, and that's where that balance is. If a district all of a sudden had a boom of 50 kids coming in, they have to use some of their contingency or part of their ending fund balance to survive payroll for that growth because they wouldn't see the funding until the next year. That is the challenge of the state system. The funding is constrained, and as we all know, the price of gas, the costs just continue to go up. Our utilities, different things in maintenance. I love this quote that we put in here: system works as designed, but it is not enough for today's needs. Okay, so our questions on the second page of the template. All right, so do you feel like you have a better understanding of our current financial situation? Yes or no? Yeah, yes. And what are Sheridan's main funding sources? We have grants and we have state school fund. What are a couple of points you learned about the state school fund? These complicated things that Karen showed you.
It's ridiculous to understand.
Okay.
Behind the year, based on enrollment, a lot of things are included in this really long calculation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. It is an entire administrative course was spent basically on understanding this. And obviously, I was like, that was a long time ago.
And it really drives our whole process here. That's what I kind of took away from it. And I knew that, but it's really impactful seeing, it's the majority of the money. It's what poor Karen has to try and make everything balance through, and then it changes, and then she has to read. So when she says it's a living document and it's changing, it's not because she wants it to be. It's because somebody else is making that happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there are times I'll get an idea of hey, I'll walk back to Karen's office and we could protect the general fund because we could do this. We could shift some things within a grant. We could move somebody to a grant. If we get a new grant, can we do something different? It just becomes this shell game of protect the general fund. Mm-hmm. All right, so then if a community member asks you why Sheridan School District is making budget cuts, can you answer that question? What would you tell them?
I could, because costs are up, enrollment and revenue are down. The system looks backward on enrollment, which is a lag for the long term negative.
Perfect.
And the cost of living is up.
It is significantly. Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
I like your gas pump situation. Everybody goes to the bank gas pump and has to pay that price, right? So we all feel it. It's no different for the school.
Mm-hmm. I just think of going to the grocery store, it's just my husband and I, and what we paid, 2-3 years ago compared to what we pay now, and what I walk out with. Is that it? And I spent that much money? Yeah. And it just, I know our Sheridan families are struggling. Mm-hmm. And that's where we also rely heavily on our community's resources of what we can do to support our families so that kids are in school and that they are learning. Additional information, or this is like, if we were to do this again, what questions do you have? I made a couple of notes about just sped numbers in other districts. We want to verify what the cost would be to take a Friday furlough versus a regular school day furlough. Anything else?
Numbers for the shop funds.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So what do you want to know, like,
What we keep in overhead, like what we get for their enrollment, how much they get, what do we keep?
Because I have the contract and that says,
Pie chart.
yeah, it says for grades kindergarten to 8, this year they're gonna get 86%. Next year it's 87, the following year it's 88, the following year it's 89.
So we are going back.
And then, for the high school, I think it's 90.
yeah, it's 95, I think it's a stable.
Is that because we provide less services for that?
Mhm. Less teachers are needed. I think that's why it is.
Yeah, so it is, I mean, I can show you my, I can show you my spreadsheet when we're done.
Did you know?
No. Do you want to plug in?
No, so I can do this one.
Okay. Okay, well, I didn't know if you want to show you the spreadsheet because she's got it, but we can definitely provide that information. Anything else before we close out?
So the way we control the budget is by cutting days and staff,
Yeah.
because we can't control payroll, because that's determined by the unions and the contracts. We can't control the state school fund. We have some control over grants, but we're doing everything we can.
Mhm. And Samantha just mentioned, we are going into good faith negotiations. The license bargaining will start here in a couple of weeks. It is the full contract. We generally exchange language and then we get into the fiscal. Insurance is another area that we're going to be talking about. And the collective bargaining agreement for the classified staff, their salary is at 3.5 in their contract. We sent them a letter requesting to negotiate that and they declined. So unless something changes there, the classified staff are getting the 3.5. And as Karen explained to the budget committee, that our budget was based on a 1.5, except for classified. So we just worked that. We had to have a number, and then we'll see what happens with negotiations and where we land. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we even able to cut instructional days to save money, or is that with the executive order, is that even an option?
That's a good question. We can. We will just have to write a plan of what we will do to return to our instructional hours the next year. It makes it all the more difficult the next year.
I was gonna say, so we'd just be banking on hopefully having more next year and possibly being in the same boat.
But it's more better for Fridays than it is with Fridays. Yeah, if there was a vote, I would say.
Yeah.
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 I'm all about not impacting those students in the classroom if we at all.
Well, and
We seem to be having the other option aside from Fridays at this point.
Yeah, but Fridays, I feel like we're.
I'm not saying it's a bad option, I'm just saying our teachers really didn't want that, or like if there was some real big pushback on that.
I
we have the other choices.
I have not done this before, but I believe that the furlough day would go into an adjustment of the district calendar, which is board approved.
Okay.
So that would come down to the board. The board is going to approve the budget, the board in, hopefully in June. The budget goes to the board in June. And then if there's going to be an adjustment of the calendar, I would hope we would know by the June board meeting. If that's where we end up falling, we're still looking at this other tier and seeing what we can do. And by then we should know from negotiations, I hope.
So tier 2 is happening.
Yes,
You are working on that already.
yes, yep, and that's going to be the equivalent of close to 400,000. So that does not count what we can do in negotiations. So.
Well, hopefully some staff are watching us today and understand where we're at and where we're headed.
Well, and I think I will send out the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And just say, this is what we went through at the board work session, and if you have any questions about this, to contact either myself or Karen. We continue to send information out, so that they're aware.
Hypothetically, if they have been open to reopening the increase, would there be less cuts in staffing?
Most likely. The difficulty is, you saw in the PowerPoint, the difference between a licensed teacher and a classified person. So that the difference in that percentage is a smaller amount.
Yeah.
Definitely. But at the same
Also
time,
right-sizing.
it is right sizing.
You know, if we don't have as many kids, we don't need as many teachers, we don't need as many,
Yeah.
It's just hard.
It is.
But it's also, I feel like we do one step forward, one step back, because I met with our, PACE liability guy. And he's like, well, this year, it was like, we paid $167,000 for liability insurance. And he said, I haven't seen firm numbers, but it's probably gonna be a 10% increase. So I'm like, ah. So that's gonna happen, and we can't not pay that, so.
If we have less teachers, less cost, people that change dollar. Oh, that's great.
Because this is this is based on like way more factors, and the wildfires. Because that's every
We're the
teacher.
Yeah. I know, they don't have property tax, plus insurance.
Flood insurance.
But yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, we're making headway, and then, oh wait, just kidding. So, and on that depressing note.
Is there more questions for the ladies? Okay, well then it is 7:07, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Lori can take us off.
Always available. Except for during rotary when I shut my door, it's too late.